Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. Excuse me. I am your host, Stephen Stark, and we got John back this week. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty okay. I got some good news yesterday, so
That's good.
you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I got some good news yesterday, and that's got me in a pretty good mood. So I am I'm wearing I cut off all my hair, y'all. I cut it all off, and my head is very cold. So well, not very cold, but my head is cold. So I am going
I
to.
I felt so bad because when you posted that picture, you know, everybody's reactions were like, "Wow, looks great, way to go, Stephen." And my reaction was just shock face.
Right.
Like I
No,
meant I meant to communicate positives as well, but it was just so like I wasn't expecting it, and it was so like it's
yeah.
very
Well,
different, man.
so like I was trimming up the beard a little bit. I wanted to get it nice and trimmed in, and I was trimming up this part right here. Actually, I think it was on this side. This part right here. And I'm
Hmm.
like, it's where it transitions from beard into head hair, and there's like a different texture to it. And I was just like, it was not cooperating, and I'm like, you know what? I'm about to show you who's boss. And once I started, I was just like, I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. So yeah, the hair is gone. I probably will just start growing it back, but I was just there.
Yeah, that's that moment when you have the razor, it can be dangerous because
Well,
'cause-
the thing is, I chose to do this. I did.
yeah,
This was not an accident that spiraled out of control, but I was like, you know what? It's time. Okay, so yeah, so that's why I'm wearing this thing, which I never wear, but my head's cold because I don't have any hair anymore. But yeah, so we're talking about Star Wars,
hmm
the Bad Batch.
which I'm in a really good mood because I just finished my rewatch this morning. And I had forgotten how much I enjoyed the show. Like, I mean, I hadn't forgotten, but like, I really came to love these characters, and so rediscovering that was fun. And I forgot what kind of a powerhouse the finale is. And but yeah, everybody knows I love it. I'm interested to hear your reaction, Stephen.
Okay, I struggled with this show.
Mm,
I did not hate it. I did not love it. It got better for me as it went along, but full disclosure, I struggled. By the time we got to the end of the season, I was like, okay, uh, you know, but there was a lot that I enjoyed. I'm not going to lie, but there were some things that I'm just like, why? Why are we doing this? Um, I probably have some unpopular opinions regarding that, and that's
mm,
fine. I'm perfectly happy for people to disagree with me. I've always supported people enjoying what they enjoy, even if I enjoy it, or even if I don't. But yeah, this one was. It's not a miss, but and I think I probably would have enjoyed it more if I had not yet seen like the Book of Boba Fett and Andor, because
okay.
both of those really changed my view of Star Wars. One in a not a very good way, as we discussed when we talked about Book of Boba Fett, and one in a very positive way, which we talked about when we did Andor.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, and I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum, but this show it was not my favorite Star Wars thing, and a lot of that can be laid at the feet of one character.
God, now I'm scared to hear who the character is.
Well, we'll get there. So do you? But you know what? Let me talk about my favorite character instead.
Okay.
Because I will prefer to talk mostly about the things that I did enjoy, you know? Um, and that was Wrecker. What a great character he is.
Yeah, no,
Because he's all heart, no brains. I mean, I guess in a tactical situation, that's not always the case. I'll give them this. They used cover a lot. And flanking, and when they flanked, they were actually like going around the sides. So I was very happy to see that.
The great thing about Wrecker throughout the show, which I was very happy about, was that I remember when I watched their the Bad Batch's arc of the Clone Wars, and this is even going back years before season 7 because that arc was out there in animatic form, and and the thing about Wrecker was that it felt like there was a very thin line between entertaining Wrecker and too much Wrecker. And with this show, they alleviated any of that by giving so much heart to the character, and especially with his bond with Omega, or as I love to call her, Omega.
Omega.
And like just their relationship is so wonderful, and
it's very cute.
Yeah, and you know, one of my favorite moments of the season is after you know, we get to the half point of the season where Wrecker's chip has been activated, and after that we have that moment where she says the mission's over, we can't break tradition, and she gives him the Mantel mix, you know, to let him know that everything's okay. So their relationship is just so wholesome, and so yeah, I think it's impossible not to just fall in love with Wrecker.
Yeah, I agree, because he's very lovable. Like he's not what I would call the gentle giant, but he's got his soft side. Because he is not gentle in anything. He's definitely a slap you on the back kind of person. You know, he's loud. He takes up a lot of space. He likes making things go boom.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite Wrecker moments is still from season 7 of Clone Wars when Anakin gives him the detonator and he says, "Oh, you mean I get to blow it up?" So yeah, and I love the.
You're right. It doesn't have a pod race scene.
No, well, he's referencing something in season 2. Actually, I absolutely loved that episode of season 2, Danny. So yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but
that's why it's not as good. It doesn't have a pod racing scene. That's why season 1 is not as good. I think that's what he's saying.
Well, he's saying in season 1's defense. So I think
in defense of season 1 not being as good, it doesn't have a pod race.
Oh,
I don't know. There's a lot of ways to read that. It's very hard to get context from, you know.
Yeah.
A comment in the chat section. Anyway.
No, God, what was I going to? That completely derailed me. I had a thought.
We were talking about Wrecker, if that helps.
Yeah, I'll probably come back to it.
We're gonna do what we do and just meander.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really did enjoy. I also really part of what I loved about Wrecker probably was his character design as well. The big like growling mouth painted on his helmet, and like the skull face, and you know, he's bigger and he's got like the armored collar that the rest of the clones don't have. Like he's the heavy armor guy, and we see him take hits and his armor. Thank God he's got the heavier armor because he is the guy that takes hits.
I know, it's funny because at first it's just a recurring joke until it gets a bit more. You realize what's awaiting, you know, us is the fact that he's always hitting his head because he always charges like full on into stuff. And And yeah, it's I love that he plows, no pun intended, headfirst into everything, and he's just
It does make him a distinctive character. Um, mm, and I thoroughly enjoyed him. And while we're talking about specific characters, like I will say, I really did enjoy pretty much all of them uh, to some degree or other. Hunter's my least favorite,
mm.
but like that's fine. I find him to be a little bit too much just tropey,
I
But
mean, Hunter is the one because he's the leader, so he
yes,
sort of by design has to be the one that's sort of the most straight and
yeah,
narrow. But what he like the core of this story, it really is a even though like Omega has relationships with the others, especially Wrecker. But like you see at the core of the show being like a father-daughter dynamic with Hunter and Omega. So like that ends up kind of being his like character traits is his dynamic with her.
and yes, Sid was Rhea Perlman's character, and Sid is fantastic. We'll get there. When she was a great character, Sid. Like, okay, Hunter serves his role well. He's not my favorite. That by no means means he's a bad character, But he's my
Mm-hmm.
least favorite of like the Bad Batch.
Mm.
Those 5 defective clones. Defective. I wish I was defective the way they're defective. You know what I mean? But yeah, he I think that's largely because he has to fulfill that sort of middle of the road leadership. Oh hey AK, it's been a minute. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, AK.
Um, but like,
yeah,
there's plenty to love in all of them. Like, I found myself really enjoying Tech.
yeah, and
Probably a lot of that's down to his character design too, because he's got a great character design.
which, by the way, he's got some great stuff coming in season 2.
I'm glad because I feel like he was just like there's only so much time to go around, and you're going to focus on this character and then this one, and he'll get his due in time. Record had a lot to do.
Yeah, I felt like season 1 was their priority was definitely building on and it just by default ends up being sort of the dynamic with Omega since she's the new person of the group. So it ends up if season 1 ended up focusing on like the dynamics between her and Hunter and her and Wrecker and we got less of Tech and Echo, but I just feel like that's so they could organically grow these relationships and not try to just fit everything in. I feel like
it's okay. But he is a character I'm looking forward to seeing more from in season 2.
Yeah, and something that I
loved his character design too. Like you're going to hear me say that a few times in this show. But by the way, I told you up front, this was not really my thing. But one thing I constantly kept coming back to is this is a really beautiful show.
Yes.
Like it is very nice to look at pretty much all the time. So it does have that going for it too.
Like I just cannot believe the strides that they have made since the early days of Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff, especially like and especially there's a couple like granted all the season 1 Clone Wars stuff was a bit rough. But there are a couple episodes in season 1 of that show that practically look like animatics. They're they get and like, and that's fine because that was the very early days of Lucasfilm animation, and I get it. But just to look at where they are now, it's so gorgeous.
I'm not gonna lie. Like there were times where I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of impressed with what they've done animation wise. There were some underwater scenes and maybe the last and second to last episode that really, I was like, wow, that's really good. There was a scene where Hunter gets knocked out somehow. I think he takes a blaster to the chest even, and then he wakes up and you're getting like through his visor and you're half hearing the sounds and it's very disorienting. I thought that was just like beautiful.
Yeah. And but yeah, and so going back into the batch themselves, one of the things that, and I've heard some, I forget where I was hearing it from, some complaints about, that Echo feels like sort of the odd man out, but actually, especially going back to watch the entire season and plus with having seen the couple episodes of season 2, I really see Echo as sort of the soul of the batch, because he's the one that's kind of always saying like, this isn't what we should be doing. We should be joining the fight.
Right. He's the reg who's been to war in a way that the Bad Batch never hasn't been to war. Yeah. They haven't had that, like, because they've always been basically a commando unit. Or like a super special forces unit, because I guess Rex is a commando. By the way, Rex!
Yeah. I know.
And then Hera, oh my gosh!
Yeah, it's like, and it's funny because, although a lot of people, and this is sort of broadening out and comparing structures of shows, but people kind of went like, whoa, what's going on, where for an episode or two of Book of Boba Fett, it seemed like we were doing an episode of The Mandalorian, whereas this show came first, and it was like, oh, we're doing a prequel episode of Star Wars Rebels.
Right.
But I loved it. I remember watching this episode the first time, and it was just like, oh, we're on
Ryloth.
On Ryloth. That's cool. Oh wait. Oh my God. Are we going to see Hera? Oh my God. There she is. Chopper. Oh my God.
Look at little baby Hera.
And
she still had an accent closer to her parents at that point. She hadn't sort of grown out of it or intentionally lost it or whatever.
Oh yeah. Well, there is a scene in Star Wars Rebels where she's arguing with her father, where her accent comes
back a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. So like when we and Fennec Shand and Cad Bane, and I was just like, you know what, I'm here for this. And they did it right, because they just sprinkled them in.
Which, by the way, I am actually rather heartbroken that you saw Book of Boba Fett before this show. Yeah. Because we hadn't seen Cad Bane since season 4 of the Clone Wars, and this was his entrance back in.
And it was so awesome too.
It was great. He gets like a full down, like, this is my, like, I love his entrance in Book of Boba Fett, but like, this was like, he gets the showdown with the Western music,
or just the reveal too, because like, it's just all of a sudden he's there. Wasn't that hard, really?
Yeah. Is so great. And so if there's one silver lining to the fact that he's unceremoniously, killed off in Book of Boba Fett, it's the fact that at least I know that he's going to be around for a while in this era. I don't have to worry about him being taken off the board, for this show. So, but yeah, I just totally flipped out when he showed up in this. And
I am not the right person to answer this, Taker, but he might be. Do you know, John?
He
Or
might.
is it just like gonna Google it to make sure?
He might be. I have the cast list pulled up here. I just don't want to say yes right away, and then it.
And then be a filthy liar.
Yeah, and then it's like, John, you're a fraud. You don't know.
Fake
Yeah, it
man,
is.
fake man.
It's Corey Burton.
Is both of them Cad Bane and Dooku?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, yes, guilty Undertaker. It's Corey Burton. Everybody knows that.
And the fact that Fennec is in this is really cool because they were in production on this before she even made her first appearance in The Mandalorian.
In the second season of Mando?
No, in the first season of Mando. Because she was in episode 5 of season 1.
Okay.
That's where we think she's killed.
Okay. You're right. And then she's back with Boba Fett in season 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they were making, big bets on the character, like planning ahead and being like, yeah, we're going to use this character.
And pretty good likeness of Ming-Na Wen in the character model. And pretty faithful recreation of her, outfit.
Yeah.
Nobody in Star Wars ever changes clothes except Lando Calrissian and Princess Leia,
Well, and I get it because at the point they were planning on the show, it was only for one appearance on The Mandalorian. So it's like, to make sure that we recognize the character, they're going to make sure that it's.
I really like that they made her as ruthless as they did, but was still like, ultimately she was working for the scientist, the Kaminoan scientist whose name I can't remember, the one who's now been transported to some planet somewhere.
Yeah, I have there's too many names for me to find
right
the right ones. And Nala Se, I think
Nala Se, yep.
Yeah.
Lama Su's dead.
Yeah, and I will say, this was, and the fact that I don't know if it would be fair to say I guess I did kind of grow up on them. They were in my later teen years, but the fact that that the prequels go so far back for me, and they're kind of part of my DNA as a Star Wars fan. Just the destruction of Kamino was such a holy shit moment, and it is sort of like that cements the end of the Republic and the era of the clone.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I will say too, beautifully animated.
Yeah.
I almost said shot, beautifully shot, but cinematography is still a thing. Even in animation, you still have to think about the.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing Dave Filoni say they even would George trained them to refer to it as shots and they shot this or that, because his philosophy was always that the episodes of Clone Wars were not short film, but abbreviated films. And I think you're finally seeing the fruition of that now, where the technology is catching up to the ambitions they had for what these episodes could be.
Yeah. So you ready to hear me complain again?
Sure.
This is going to hurt you, John. You're not going to like it. You ready?
All right, let's go.
Omega.
She is adorable, and I love her.
I feel like she is shoehorned in to give the kids some character to glom onto. And like, we're an elite special forces unit with our high-end gear and armor and everything, and we're going to take a kid with a bow with us on our missions. And I'm just like, it's not very good parenting. And like, she prevents it from being the story that I wanted. And I've said this before. They don't have to make a show to please me. That's fine. But because they didn't make a show to please me, I'm not in love with it, you know? And to me, it's like, why do you have to put a child in there? Because that just invites childish writing. And yeah, okay, it's a Star Wars animated show. But then they're like sniper blasting people in the chest and killing them and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe it's more commentary on just me being really weird about Star Wars anymore, because there's just so much Star Wars out there. And this feels well done, but like old school Star Wars stuff. And I'm just over it, is part of the problem, maybe.
I mean, I agree that it feels like old school Star Wars, but I missed the part where that's a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but I'm kind of over it. You know, like, I've moved on from old school Star Wars in a lot of ways. It's not what I want because we've had so much of it. I want something new. And that's a personal taste thing. That doesn't make this show a bad show. I recognize it's actually pretty good. Again, there was a lot of it that I liked, but this show is just not my show.
Well, I don't feel like this should have been a show where they tried to, like, this is a sequel series to Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Yeah, and that's fine.
And so it should carry on the spirit of that show, while narratively what it's doing is we're following one story, and as opposed to Clone Wars,
which was all kind of all over the place. Yeah,
is like an anthology. So this is following more in the narrative structure of Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah,
but it has the tone and
yeah,
and
the feel of
Clone Wars, and the animation style, and so like, and I get that right now everybody is like high off of Andor, but Andor is an anomaly.
It is.
It is not what Star Wars is. It's a new flavor, and I get why people are like, I love Andor, and I love Andor for that reason. But that doesn't mean that I want everything to shake up the formula.
I don't want everything to be Andor. I'm glad the Bad Batch exists. For you people that love the show, I'm very happy you have it. But like, I can't help, everybody's taste is different, and your tastes change over time. And I think I'm just in a spot where I'm like, it's okay. I'm not excited about it. I'm just not. I was excited about Cad Bane. I did really think that the ending set up the potential for some really great story. Like that 2-part finale. Okay, I'm going to give it to you. That was good. And Omega was the least annoying that she was in the entire series.
She wasn't annoying in any of the series, but
again, just variations and like disagreements and like. Again.
And here's the thing, like, I am going to disagree with you, because I don't think having a child character makes something inherently childish.
It doesn't, but it opens the door for it, and they did it. They did it in this show sometimes.
Again, disagree, but
yeah. Like, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm not wrong. We just disagree.
Because I think the thing that emotionally tied me to the show was the relationship between Omega and the Bad Batch.
Maybe that's why it's not resonating with me, because I did not connect with Omega. I did not find her to be a character that I enjoyed really from the get-go. It was an uphill battle. But I also went into it going, that's kind of how I felt about Ahsoka early on. And I love Ahsoka now. You just got to get there. And yeah, maybe it'll change. But, I can't force myself to like something I don't like or to dislike something that I do like or, and hell, John, do you remember we built this channel early on disagreeing about shit? So, it's fine to disagree, but
I will say that, but I think that is at the core of our divergence because, you say it was an uphill battle for you. I fell in love with the character the moment she appeared on screen. So
I almost went, oh no, it's a kid. And I almost had a similar, in the finale bit, I went, oh no, it's a wacky droid.
I love AZ.
Okay.
Because and that goes back to his first appearance was in season 6 of Clone Wars, where he teamed up with, there's too many names, man. I can't Fives, yeah. And so I leapt for joy every time I saw AZ, and
I didn't leap for joy. I leapt for joy when I saw Chopper. Okay. Not gonna lie.
But why? It's because you're associated with that character, and just like I had memories of AZ from Clone Wars, from that arc. That's why I was excited then. So it's like Chopper. Come on, man! Chopper's as
Chopper's a
child targeted as you can get because he's the wacky droid.
He is, but I like Chopper because he was like, I'm not putting up with your BS. I'm gonna shock you. I'm gonna run over you. I'm gonna push you off the ledge. Chopper don't give a F, and that's what I like about Chopper. Even fewer Fs to give than R2-D2. So yeah, I'm perfectly willing to let the show grow on me, but I watched the whole first season, and at the end of it, I was like, eh. And I can't help that that's how I felt, I wanted to love it. I really was kind of looking forward to it, but I will say they really have set it up because I did find the Crosshairs stuff, Crosshairs actually might have been my favorite character in the show.
And that was brilliant because even upon rewatch, when you go back, I don't have a solid beat on when Crosshair had his chip removed. It's very ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that.
I did too. I appreciated that beat a lot. I appreciated that in the finale that they got to this point where they're like, yeah, there's history. Yeah, we still care. But my ideology is so divergent from yours that, the best we can do is walk away from each other right now. It's the best they could hope for at the end of that episode. And it won't stay that way. I mean, I haven't watched any of season 2 yet, but I know it's coming out right now. And I can't imagine that they all just decide to go on a picnic together,
No, yeah.
That changed my mind. I'm not a space Nazi anymore. Let's go.
No, I don't know what, if anything, will dig Crosshair out of that because, he's, and we've all, not to this degree, but we've all had those, moments of feeling and for most of it's just usually in the context of an argument or something I'm in too deep. I can't give ground now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's the sunk cost fallacy. Yeah.
So, but no, and that story is, it's heartbreaking for me because, in some ways, it's expected that of any of the characters who would fall in with the Empire, it would be Crosshair. But at the same time, it's very sad because you saw the bond that there was, between them as maybe different as his, personal sort of ideology may be. The season starts off where they're all working in sync, and just the way like Hunter gives an order and Crosshair's like, sir, yes, sir. He enjoys being part of, the batch and fighting with his brothers, and so it's just.
Hang on 1 second.
Yeah. We're standing by, everyone. How can he not like Omega? Oh my
god. Apologies. The dog was starting to go nuts barking, and I couldn't even understand what you were saying. So I had to go choke her out real quick,
Okay. No, what was I saying? Crosshair.
Yeah, Crosshair.
Yeah, just because you see the love that he does have for his brothers, and so much of what he's doing by the end of the season is just out of heartbreak because he feels he was abandoned. And
theory, I think he probably got it out after they blew up the engine bit, and he was pretty seriously injured there. Crosshair was.
That's my personal theory, but I like that
you can't tell.
That it doesn't say for sure. I think it has to be after, like it can't be early on, like
no.
while Tarkin was still at the base. It has to be after that.
I really like that they had a "You may fire when ready," which was probably just an alternate take from actual Star Wars.
Or it could have been, or it could have just been Stephen Stanton. He's been doing he's been voicing Tarkin for a while, so I'm sure he has, he's got to be an expert on all the Tarkin dialogue by now.
Sure.
But yeah, so we're just jumping all around.
We're just jumping all around. But, like I'm not done talking about Crosshair because I'm just, it sets up such an interesting dynamic. That was the one thing they did that really genuinely surprised me, was that first of all they had Crosshair turn, and then I was like, he'll be back by the end of the episode. Oh, okay. Well, he'll be back by the end of the next episode. Oh, okay. Well, he'll be back by the end of the season. Oh, okay. Like, they continued to surprise me in that department, and I'm really glad they did, because as I say, Crosshair might be my favorite character in the show now that I really think about it. I really love Wrecker. He's so lovable, but Crosshair's probably the most interesting character of the bunch, at least for as far as season 1 goes.
Yeah, and boy, like I remember like peeking in on Twitter throughout the season of the show. There's some Crosshair fans who are not happy about the state of things.
What, for season 2 or season 1?
For season 1, just because they didn't expect for
they didn't expect him to be a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I love what they're doing with this character, and so fascinating, like the way they've done it, so that we don't have a solid read on when he got his chip out, and so the stuff that he's been doing, is of his own accord. It's not as simple as, well, he's being mind controlled. It just makes the character so layered and complicated and fascinating.
Yeah. And it gives and yes, it's definitely a confrontational relationship that they have, but it's not one that they can just shoot or punch their way out of, like And that's really interesting. You know, when you give Action Man a problem he can't solve with his fists, you know, you get to see a different part of that person. And let's face it, even the nerd is Action Man in the Bad Batch. Like even Tech would like wreck any one of us in hand to hand combat, outshoot any one of us. And
Yeah.
and he's the nerd of the crew. I love his character design so much. Like I'm going to say this so many times. They look amazing.
Yeah.
They all do, and they're just different enough that you know you can be like, that's Echo, that's Wrecker. Like, okay, Wrecker really stands out, but like even the rest of them, they're different enough. You can pretty easily tell them apart.
Which, and I love the fact that that like playing into that, you've got Sid with her names for each. I love that she calls Tech Goggles.
Goggles, goggles, tiny muscles, bandana.
Yeah.
I don't know that she's got one for Echo. By the way, you ready for a stupid complaint?
Okay.
Okay, it's a military thing, right?
Of course it is.
Actually, I just talked myself out of it. So they have call signs, right?
Yeah.
Echo, Hunter, Tech, Crosshair, and Wrecker. The problem with that is three of those names are so close to each other that in garbled radio static, you don't know who you're talking about. Did you say Echo or Tech or Wrecker? Seriously, like that's a thing that the military will not have things that sound too similar for that very reason. So there's rant over.
Okay. Although I will say, like,
They're really their names.
my favorite dad joke of the season was, "Is there an echo in here? Right here."
Yep. Yeah, exactly. F Tech Rec.
Which, and that was another, like, there's actually a couple carryovers from season 7 of Clone Wars, one of which I'm sure escaped your notice. Yeah, obviously the Bad Batch themselves, and then you got the Martez sisters who show up this season, which I'm great. You're seeing like Ahsoka's coalition without actually showing Ahsoka and seeing what she's up to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you see Rex and
yeah.
Cham Syndulla and yeah.
But also, the two aliens in Sid's bar.
Yeah, the Athorian and the other, I don't know what type he is, but he's the same as Hondo.
They were imprisoned by the Pipes in season 7 in the middle arc of the show, and they escape when Ahsoka and the Martez sisters are escaping. And I did not notice that until we went back and did our coverage of season 7. I was like, what? I know that. And it's just such a fun little thing that they layered those characters in.
I thought it was a nice touch that the Athorian had a universal translator and you could still hear the noise in the background and then the translated voice over top of it. Nice touch. Well done. Because Athorians can't make the same sounds we can. I appreciate, like, the show is good. It's just not for me. And I think a lot of that is I did not connect with Omega because I thought I was going to get like hard. I thought I was going to get just the Bad Batch. And then I kind of rolled my eyes, I think, because I'm going, they're going to shoehorn a kid in here and it's going to turn into a kid's, you know, it's going to be wacky, goofy fun with C-3PO and R2-D2. And I famously did not enjoy that during the Clone Wars episodes. You know, I complained about it every time it happened. So maybe part of it was me bracing for impact that never really came. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because by the time I got to the end, I was like, I did really enjoy the finale. Some of the stuff leading up to it, not as much. But you know, it was a bit up and down. Luckily, it ended on a high, and It was beautiful. It was well animated. And maybe I had just come to care enough because they hadn't really jumped the shark, so to speak, with the kid being too annoying. Like, I got really annoyed with her when the alien grabbed the doll and she just goes running off down the street after the doll that the alien took. And I'm just like, kid, come on.
But that's, first of all, that is early on. Second of all, like, this is a kid who has never been off of, the city on Camino in her entire life. She's curious and like.
But like, you're not wrong about that. But that's the shenanigans I don't want in my serious Star Wars story. The thing is, that's not what this is.
Your serious Star Wars story? Yeah. Should we go back to the original trilogy and evaluate some things?
Granted. But I also have said, like, I'm kind of over that flavor. I loved mint chocolate chip for years, but I'm on to cookie dough now, my man. It is what it is, and I can't change that. Like, I will always love Star Wars. Luke Skywalker is my guy. I would take a bullet for that man. But I'm just not.
I'm just saying, I don't think you can fault Star Wars for being Star Wars.
I can't. But I'm also not going to sit here and tell you that I love a thing when I'm just like, meh. And I think a lot of that is because I've been given the same Star Wars too many times. This is turning into a different conversation, isn't it?
Sorry, no, I just saw this.
And right.
And I was flashing to Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Cookie dough.
Which, going really off topic, by the way, if anybody hasn't seen these fresh new pictures of Sarah Michelle Gellar and James Marsters on the red carpet together, check those out.
Really? New ones?
Yep.
Interessant.
I posted them in the TV channel.
I think I have that channel muted.
Oh, okay.
I'll go look, because those are two very attractive people.
I know. I should have just put it in the Thirst channel. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't.
You?
That would have made more sense.
It really would have. John, this might surprise you to hear. I don't have a whole lot more to say about this show. But so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do our mid-roll now, and then we'll talk for as long as you feel like it.
Okay.
Great. Hi, everybody. This is a YouTube channel, which means you should do the like and the subscribe. And there's a little bell thing, which, you can do the bell thing if you want, but we're pretty much always just, same Sunday time every week. John, what are we talking about next week?
I have no idea. We're going to.
You know what? I don't either. Nessie will be back. We'll talk about something.
Will she? Because this was actually supposed to be her back week.
You're right.
But she wasn't going to have time to watch the show.
It won't be her. You want to talk about, John, pick a movie.
Not on the spot like this.
On the spot like this right now. I'm kidding. If you have a suggestion of what you want us to talk about, let us know. Things that we will be talking about in the not too distant future. I will be talking, probably not with John, but with somebody about The Legend of Vox Machina. The first 3 episodes dropped this week. Here in about an hour, episode 2 of The Last of Us is dropping, and I watched the first episode, and it was so good. Like, I'm not a zombies guy. I know they're not technically zombies, but it is a zombie post-apocalypse survival genre, and it's really good. Like, it's really good. Have you checked out the first episode yet, John?
I have not.
Do you have any plan on doing that?
As soon as I get through the, tons of other shows I'm trying to get to.
Right. Well, Pedro Pascal, Bella Ramsey, very good. And
I think I've heard of them.
Yeah. They, funnily enough, both crushed to death on Game of Thrones. But hold on. Oh, so you were met on the show or met on the game, Kathy? So much hype, but even with that pre-downer, I still enjoyed it and appreciate it. Okay, the show. I got you. I didn't. I like played a couple hours of the game, so basically whatever is episode one is kind of what I had, and I didn't even remember all of that, and they changed some stuff. But I'm telling you, it's good. Not my genre, but loved it and can't wait to watch the next one. What else is coming up? We're going to talk about the tabletop role playing game community in a non Dungeons and Dragons context very soon because it deserves it. Also, John, I just wanted to tell everybody on air we were supposed to talk about this show last week, and we didn't because the whole D&D stuff was so fresh that we needed to talk about it then. And of course, it's continuing to go on, and they're continuing to shit the bed. But anyway, we'll talk about something next week. I don't know what. John, do you know what?
I don't know yet, but we will brainstorm some stuff.
We'll figure out something,
Yeah.
Honestly, you only half-ass come here for the topics anyway. Mostly you're here for the cool people in the chat and my charming personality. So, and John's good looks.
Yes, obviously.
John, is there anything else you want to talk about?
For the mid-roll? No, just
okay.
Glad you're all here.
Yeah, glad you're all here. I'm especially glad for our patrons because, as y'all know, we to become we have to do a background check on anybody that wants to become a patron to ensure that they are in fact a dragon. And we have several dragons, actual real life dragons, who support us, including ridiculous Ed Tollett and Lord John Bronsteen, the wise great worm dragons. And they are attended by the court of the elder dragons, including the Cloaked One of the Underworld, Ryan Stavka, the Russian Quartermaster, Reflective Rambling, Arch-Maester Emma, Kate, Mistress of the House of Books, Jared Kozal, Doctor of Dragons, Lady Maura Lee of Starfall, and Lady Rita the Unbound. So, yeah, thank you, patrons. We love you guys. If you want to be a patron, there's a link down in the description. And I will have to do a background check to make sure that you are actually physically a dragon. But once that's done, yeah, you're in. Thanks. Oh, if you want to join our community outside, we have a Slack group. We really should have a Discord, but we don't. We have a Slack. But if you want to join, just send me an email to we3dragons@gmail.com. The email is on your screen. If you're just listening, it's we3dragons, 3 is spelled out, at gmail.com.
I don't know. I prefer our Slack to Discord. I know it doesn't.
Everybody uses Discord.
I know, but it's ours. But Slack feels more cozy to me.
Okay. Ooh. Wheezy says her son says everyone in the D&D community that he knows is upset. Yeah, we're all upset. But that's a conversation for a different time. Okay. But you send me a message or something and I'll go watch last week's stream. You'll understand. You were there last week, Wheezy, weren't you? Thought you were. Anyway, I'm rambling. And I'm not even being reflective while I do it. So I'm just, regurgitative rambling. John, save me, please. Talk about Star Wars.
Okay. So we're done with the mid-roll. I do want to, sorry, I am going to stretch this out because there were some things that I wanted to talk to. I want to go back to the first episode of the season, which... one of the things I absolutely adored was that the way the show started off like it was another episode of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
We got
We're having an announcer.
yeah,
Making sure we're up to speed on what's going on.
yeah, I love the announcer, and that we got even like flashes of scenes from Revenge of the Sith, and which just reinforces the fact that I wish we could get a Clone Wars style version of Revenge of the Sith, which they'll never do. But
No.
but I would just love to have all those, those actors, the voice actors, and maybe take a second pass at some of the stuff, which again is why they would never do it, because nobody would step on George's toes like that. Anyway, I'm digressing. But no, I love that it started off and it gets you back into that comfort zone with, we're seeing the clones fight. We've got battle droids. Like, and by the way, like, I have to say, like, I've come to so adore battle droids. I know they're childish, but like, those poor things were just used.
So I was on our Zoom call this morning. This morning I was on there literally, and we were talking about like free the droids,
Yeah.
I feel bad. Oh, hi Moni. It's been a minute. And I'm glad you love the Bad Batch. Only listen to what John has to say about it. I did not hate it. Anyway, I digress.
But which is actually, speaking of the battle droids, like that's why I was very excited to see them make an appearance in the Mando season 3 trailer, because I'm like, yeah, like, because I feel like they have fans now. We were all rather annoyed by them when when the prequels first came out,
yeah.
But now, like, I kind of adore them.
Yeah, like, but we were literally talking about like they clearly feel fear and pain, and yet we put restraining bolts on them and wipe their memories, and I'm just like, no, droids are slaves. Free the droids.
Yeah. And speaking
some of that in this show.
And speaking of Hera, we got another Rebels cameo at the beginning of this series. We get young Caleb Doom.
Oh yeah, we do.
Otherwise known as Kanan.
Mm-hmm.
Voiced by a way too old sounding
Freddie Prinze Jr. That's a 40-year-old man pretending to be a child.
Like, I know why they went for it, but it was like, that didn't quite work.
Yeah, he's like 11 and he's like, I'm going to go off and fight on my own now.
But still, the Rebels fan of me still loved.
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing Caleb. He was only there for a hot second, which is fine.
And then we get like thrown right back into the horror of Order 66. You're having a fun moment with the batch coming in, and we got young Kanan there, and then you just hear Palpatine's voice, the great Ian McDiarmid, execute Order 66, and thrown right back into the horror. And I'm gonna fit in a word about the score. Nice. There's some great utilization of John Williams a couple times in this series. That first scene when the clones turn on Caleb's master, and then in the maybe I'm trying to remember. I don't think it's the very last episode. I think it's the second to the last episode when Crosshair and the troopers are taking Hunter to Kamino. You hear the Kamino theme from Attack of the Clones.
I'm really glad you brought up music. We don't talk about music enough on this stream. Like, I'm just taking the piss out of you.
I know. I was like, he's not actually being serious.
No, he's not. He's not actually being serious.
Some more interesting points about the music. I'm just throwing out some trivia. for this show, most of the music for the series is actually performed on synthesizers because it was easier during COVID.
Yeah.
Is they weren't going to gather, an
An
orchestra,
yeah.
with the exception for the finale. And I think you can really tell that score.
Yeah, the rest of this music
is
is good. Yeah. But you're right. I think you can tell a difference in the end. I actually was a little bit surprised sometimes where there was no music and I felt that it was missing even. Like there were long, no music. And sometimes no music is the right choice. But sometimes I'm like, this scene feels almost empty. It's missing something because the music isn't there to like give it the context that music can do. It didn't happen very often, but like a non-zero number of times I was like, there needs to be music here and there's not.
I didn't really feel that. I think, I mean, do you think part of that could be the fact that you're watching something animated and you expect a bit more musical coverage? Because I feel like with animated things, we very often don't actually let things just sit. It seems like there is always a tendency to want to keep, movement, with sound and stuff. Do you think that's at play at all? Or
Maybe.
I don't know.
But like, it's not something that if there was just a time or two where I'm like, it's oddly silent, and I'm not sure why. But hey, and there were times where I'm like, I wonder if that was the shot that they added to get 12 more seconds into this to make it, whatever. But even that doesn't seem right. I don't know. It just did not really fully resonate with me. And which sucks because I like Star Wars in general, but like the last year has shown me the best and the worst of Star Wars in the new era, in my opinion. Between the Book of Boba Fett and Andor, like I just think the way I look at the whole IP is different, and I might just be a couple years late or a year or two late on Bad Batch, which means I should have watched it when it first came out. But that's not what happened, and here we are. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I don't love the thing you love.
No, that's fine. I'm not gonna lie.
Yet?
What? Oh no.
Yet? Yeah, right.
Well, I sure as hell I'm not going to now. Shit.
Right. Why would you?
No. I will say, I'm you're not mincing words, so I won't either. Like before Andor came out, this was my favorite of the Disney Plus Star Wars shows.
Okay. Don't pull that. Yeah. You're allowed to love what you love, and that's the thing. I see that there's plenty to love here. It just didn't not quite land for me. But yeah, please go ahead. Continue.
That's fine.
Continue talking about why you loved it.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna run through some of the things in some of the episodes that I really liked. I loved in the second episode we got to see the return of Cut and Sue from the episode of Clone Wars where Rex gets taken in by the deserter, and so we go back and see them, and that was the kind of stuff like I really started to love once this show started going and they weren't afraid to dip back into the well of stuff we had seen in Clone Wars. I was like, this really is like, it's a full-on sequel series in that we're not revisiting this stuff just for the sake of cameos. It's like, this is organic storytelling that like we started off with some stuff in Clone Wars and they're utilizing that. I really loved seeing those characters, and same thing with later on, the return of Cad Bane just felt so organic to the world. And what was great about, again, it's like, because when he showed back up in Boba Fett, like he had already shown up in this, so like everybody kind of it wasn't some like out of the blue, oh my god. With this, the thing about Cad Bane was that for years there had been an animatic from an episode of an unfinished episode of Clone Wars, which still has never gotten made, where it was going to be a team up with him and young Boba Fett. And at the end of the episode, there was going to be a shootout between the two of them, which they sort of took elements of that to feed into the Book of Boba Fett. But the thing is, for years, a lot of fans hypothesized that that's actually how Cad Bane was going to die in the Clone Wars. But that episode was never finished, so it was like, well, is the character still alive, or is he's probably dead? And the fact that, you know, we get to this point in this show and that there's that great reveal, that pan up as we see him, you know, with his head down and his hat, and it's like, wasn't much work. And yeah, it's just, it was like, I know for me, it was just like, I was shell shocked and blown away. So
yeah, I loved it. Like, it's Cad Bane, you know, one of the best characters to come out of the Clone Wars series.
Yeah,
he's just awesome. And like, I knew when he and Hunter were having that stare down, I'm like, you like, Hunter, you're good. You've shown you're clearly very good. But you're not going to beat Cad Bane.
Yeah. No. that was the thing. It's like there's tension in the moment, but I even when I was first watching it subconsciously, I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah, there's no way.
You're a goner. The only question is, are you going to survive the encounter?
Right.
And yeah, it's so good. And I did also love the fact that let me make sure that and the fact that they brought back Toto, his sidekick, like for me, and that's what makes this the more pure of the Cad Bane returns, because, you know, it's first of all, he's got Toto by his side, who was always there, you know, in Clone Wars, and second of all, like, it's not quite as big as the one he had in Clone Wars, but he's still got a big hat. And like, and they had to tone that down for Book of Boba Fett. It's like,
yeah, because it would have been comically large.
Yeah,
if they tried to.
But in animation, you can just go for it, and like, the man needs a big hat.
Yeah. He's got that swagger, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love me some Cad Bane. One of my favorite characters from the Clone Wars.
Yeah, and so I hope to.
And like, this is why I refuse to acknowledge the Book of Boba Fett. One of the many reasons, but it is what it is.
That's like one of the things that I'm like, I will full on admit to being a severe disappointment for me if they stick with that, because that's just unfortunate.
Yeah, that he just kind of like dies in the dirt unceremoniously. After
I don't want to go too far into that because that's a different discussion, but like the fact that he makes his live action debut one episode before, like, it's just, what are you guys doing? No.
You made the live action debut of one of your most popular badass characters just to kill him in the street.
Yeah. And yes, Toto is voiced by Seth Green.
I didn't know that, but I suspected just from the voice. I know Seth Green's voice. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of Robot Chicken and stuff he did before that, you know. Scott Evil and Oz from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, so let me just run through. Okay, I will say, going back to talking about sorry, just having a mind freeze for a second.
Well, I'm sorry I can't help you much. Again, like I was committed to getting through it. I knew you were excited for this one. I knew you loved this one. Uh, I was committed to get through it. I'm committed to get through the next season too, and I hope I continue to like it more as it goes along. But I got to be honest with you, I really don't have much else to say.
Okay. All right. Crosshair.
I was buying you time.
Okay. The in the third episode of the season, we get like, and this is the interesting part because I don't think Crosshair had removed his chip by the events of the third episode.
I don't think so either.
But it still leaves it open for the possibility because we get, the bit where he's sent to the planet to take out Saw Gerrera's group, which, by the way, I loved seeing the return of Saw in the premiere episode. But when he goes and he takes, he takes out not only, the soldiers, but the civilians.
Mm-hmm.
When the human, troopers weren't going to do it. And he's like, this is why I'm in charge. I'll do what needs to be done. And of course, he does follow that up with good soldiers follow orders, which makes one think that he probably does still have the chip in his head at this point.
Yeah.
But also he goes back to the barracks at the end of that episode and has this moment of sort of, it feels like reflection on, on the time that he spent in there with the batch. And
they have been careful to show the scar on anyone who, and it's very specifically placed right here, which is a spot that is in the finale burned.
Yeah.
From when he tried to kill them with the engine and he got burned at that point. And we didn't see him with his helmet off. So like there's a point where we see him with his helmet off and he's got no scar. And then we probably don't see him for a stretch of time. And then the next time we see him, he's injured. And so we can't see the scar because we never do actually see the scar.
Yeah.
But which makes me feel like it happened before he got burned.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That would be amazing. Yeah. Moni G said something similar, like retiring and hanging out with Hondo. But I think the Hondo Cad Bane team up, because like Cad Bane is just going to murder everyone, and Hondo's going to laugh and make jokes and wheel and deal and lie and manipulate the whole time. I love Hondo too.
I kind of want to see that before Hondo softens up too much.
Yeah.
Because I love,
old school hard ass Hondo.
I love Uncle Hondo, but when he is legitimately willing to like do some,
sell people out and stuff.
Yeah, I want to see that because just first of all, I don't think that Cad Bane would even put up with Uncle Hondo. I think he'd find him like chances are that Hondo winds up dead, honestly.
Yeah, but the thing is, if he paid him, Cad Bane would work for Hondo, no problem.
Yeah, that's true.
You just need to get paid.
God.
Who else do I need to talk about?
I love those characters.
We haven't really talked about Echo much at all. He didn't have, he was a solid member of the team, but like from a storytelling, character development standpoint, he and Tech kind of did get the short end of the stick this season. Hopefully they get better stuff to do in season 2. And that it is what it is. There's a lot of characters. They only have.
Yeah, like I said, Echo definitely feels like he's the one. I think the reason is because we haven't yet entered the phase where, and I presume this will come at some point down the line, where the batch decides to more directly get involved with, the fight against the Empire, in these early days. Like it's, this is not telling the story of later on with the rebellion, but I do feel like they'll probably step up and do something be a part of something with Rex and, all that at some point later in the show. And Echo is the one that's trying to push them in that direction. And because we're not there yet, I think that's why, like, Echo doesn't feel as consequential, like, narratively, in what's going on. But he does have several very important moments where Hunter's like, we need to, get all this stuff to make money, to pay Sid. And Echo's like, if we went with Rex, we wouldn't have to owe Sid anything. And like, he's trying to push them in that direction. So, which made sense that you were saying earlier, he's the one, who's been in the thick of the fighting in a way that the rest of them haven't. They've been fighting, but in very strategic, like, missions and stuff like that, where he's been on the front lines. So yeah, I think, and just based off what I've seen so far in season 2, I feel like they're giving more emphasis to both Echo and Tech, which I'm very happy to see.
And again, that's not really a critique. I fully recognize that when you have a larger ensemble, you cannot give equal time to everyone. If you're going to, you tell the good story and let the other characters play their supporting parts, which they did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for them to have their stories. Though it made sense why Hunter was really the main character of the season, and it makes sense why. He's the de facto leader. Well, he's the leader. He's also he's the natural leader as well as the designated leader. And it's his relationships with Omega and Crosshair that actually are a lot of the through line of the series. And you get Wrecker because he's the most childlike of them. So having him develop his relationship with Omega makes a lot of sense as well. Yeah, I don't know. Tech has the coolest design to me. Like, his character design is my favorite, with the goggles and the little visor thing. I don't know. He looks cool as hell, and I love and I just need more.
I love his exchange with Omega, where she's like, and Tech was the warlike, and then he goes through and gives a very, a straightforward description of it, and then she's like, but what was it like? I just told you. No, he's so great, and already already, again, I'm going to reference season 2, which, you haven't watched the episodes yet, but especially one of the episodes, he is like front and center with that. And
nice. I'm looking forward to it.
It's a lot of fun.
Like I say, I'm not going to run over the same ground again, but I'm going to keep watching it. Moni, I was saying earlier, Crosshair might have been my favorite character in the whole show because of him being the company man. I'm sorry that you're bummed about it, but that's actually one of the things I really liked, was that they had that turn, and it wasn't just, he didn't just flip back. Like, they kept that tension going the whole season.
Yeah, and I think there's something about that they actually, that Hunter raises that point in the premiere when Crosshair first, Crosshair is under the influence of the chip at first, and he's like, and he's repeating that mantra, good soldiers follow orders, and Hunter keeps being like, since when have you ever followed orders? And so that's sort of a tension, but ultimately what drives Crosshair to stick with the Empire is because that's what he knows how to do. He knows how to go out on missions and complete objectives. And in his perfect scenario, his brothers come back to where he is, and they're all, a group going out on missions together. And by the time that he maybe starts to think, that maybe the rest of them have a point, it's what I was saying earlier. He's gone too far. It's like he can't budge at that point. So yeah, it's just a question of when is enough going to be enough, or will it ever be?
Or will it ever be? And
yeah.
You know what? Either answer, I hope, either answer has the potential to be very interesting, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I won't spoil, but there's a character who comes into play for a Crosshair story in season 2 that then challenges him even more, and you're left thinking, is this guy just going to ride or die to the end on this, or is there going to be enough pressure for him to eventually snap and be like, maybe I was wrong? And so
that's an interesting take that Guilty Undertaker has, that Crosshair can't imagine a life where he isn't someone else's weapon, and that might be true, which is really, really sad.
Yeah.
He also is like, everybody's, well, not everybody, but some people are talking about Omega possibly being force sensitive.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation about that going on throughout the first season, like on social media and stuff. We'll see. Thus far, they've only established that she's a pure genetic clone,
right?
Of Django, which actually made people wonder if she was going to show up in Book of Boba Fett, because it feels because it does feel like there is a natural story point where her and Boba might run into each other at some point, but we'll see about that.
Mr. Griffin has a question. She's older than her brothers, right? Or was she just there when they enhanced them? She is older, but I think she was also old enough to remember when they were there being enhanced. Yeah. So I think she's barely older than them, but given that they age much quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is really sad because they're child soldiers. Like,
I know that just adds.
Reaching physical maturity faster does not, change the rate at which you mature.
My heart just broke when the young clones were, marching down the hallways, and they're like, well, we're still going to be soldiers, right? And she's like, that is what you were made for.
Yeah. Free the droids, free the clones.
And you have to wonder, I can't imagine actually that they were left alive, because I don't know that, as the Empire is phasing out clones,
they're going to be used as cannon fodder somewhere.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. I mean, it's pretty clear that, especially from the finale, they're like, all essential personnel are off. Everyone else has been eliminated. And it being a show that is going to draw a fairly large audience of children, I know that there are certain lines that they're skirting. But yeah, a whole bunch of fools get murked in this show. Whole bunch. There are times where you see people taking sniper shots to the chest and falling over. These ain't battle droids.
Yeah.
In the Clone Wars show, the bad guys were battle droids, and every clone that fell, we were sad because one of our guys fell. But now the bad guys are living people too in this show, and they're getting killed too.
Yeah, it's
You are correct, guilty Undertaker.
And so following through on the clone, another character I wanted to make sure we touched on, jump into the Ryloth arc, is Hauser. I think he was a captain or a commander.
Yeah, he was a captain. Hauser with the teal shoulder. Yes, captain.
Which such a great character, because you can see, him struggling the entire time with what's going on, and the fact that we get that great moment with him throwing down, and like, brothers, this is wrong. And yeah, and it does set up this interesting storyline, which I can say does continue on through season 2 of, Order 66 worked, but there does appear to be some clones who were, even if they went along with it, they seem less susceptible to it, or it's begun to wear off at a certain point. Or maybe in the case of Hauser, perhaps there weren't even any Jedi on Ryloth at the time that Order 66 went through. So did it ever switch on for him? We don't exactly know the particulars of it, but as the story progresses, you can see more and more clones are kind of like, well, wait a second, what did we actually do? And how do I feel about that? And which just adds more reason for the Empire to discard clones, because they may not have their full loyalty. And I just find that so incredibly interesting, because I just think back to when we first got introduced to the clones, and I'm not slighting the technology that went into making them, but it does, I think it is part of it that, the clones were made like CG and Attack of the Clones, and they were kind of did feel like this monolithic force, which is what they're supposed to be, right at the beginning, where they're all moving in sync with each other, and it was easy to feel like they weren't quite human characters. But then over the course of the Clone Wars show, we got to know and love these characters so much,
especially specific ones like who does not love Rex?
Yeah, exactly.
What an amazing character he ended up being.
And so to see the cracks now in Order 66, in the fact that, okay, well, you flipped a switch and they obeyed the orders, but what happens after that? And it's just so great. And the fact that, and it was heartbreaking, because you see Hauser say, who will stand with me? And a couple of his brothers throw down their weapons, but then some of them don't. And it's just, so I find that all very fascinating. To see that there's still, there's still humanity there. They haven't all been turned into, mindless, soldiers who were just following every single order.
That reminds me. Okay, one total side thing, and then I'll get back to the following orders. All right. When you're tracking someone, you do not have to pick up the dirt and look at it. It's not helping. It's not. Not helping.
Yeah, but it's a good visual thing.
It's a good visual, but it's not helping you, I promise. Okay, on to good soldiers follow orders. As somebody who was a soldier, that is a false statement. It is. So yes, you are meant to follow orders, but you are also trained and taught what orders are lawful and which ones are not. And they make a pretty big distinction. If your commanding officer orders you to machine gun fire a bunch of civilians, you should say no and not do that because that is not a lawful order. So, and granted, it's Star Wars, not the United States Army. They don't have a Geneva Convention. It's also clones who are disposable and programmed to act a certain way. But this whole good soldiers follow orders thing is a false narrative that is probably implanted through the inhibitor chip.
Yeah, that's not like one of their natural
Right.
things, like, and that's not what the Jedi instilled in them. That is purely part of the chip programming, a message like handed down from Palpatine.
Yeah.
Like when the chip gets flipped on, good soldiers follow orders. We're gonna follow. We're gonna follow orders. Kill the Jedi. That's what you're.
As a soldier, you are trained to follow orders, but like, you are not trained to just. You're not trained to. You're not taught to be a Ron Burgundy and just read whatever's on the teleprompter, no matter what. Don't think about it. You do have to discern. You do have to.
And that's the conflict there. What Palpatine wanted from these clones were clones that at the drop of a hat would follow his orders to kill the Jedi. And for the most part, he got what he wanted. But what wasn't counted on were the actual, good sort of, and for all the crap that the Jedi get, they did instill in the clones, qualities of honor and respect and all that stuff. And so I think all the other stuff the clones learned over the course of the Clone Wars comes into conflict with their programming from the chip. And so I think what you get there is that conflict of what Palpatine says good soldiering is and what the clones have actually learned good soldiering is. So
because even in my experience in the military, you are taught to follow orders, but you are not taught to blindly follow orders. Sometimes I have a piece of information you don't have. You are allowed to question, but and there are orders that are just inherently unlawful, at least as far as if you are a country that follows the Geneva Conventions. And let's be honest, a lot of Star Wars is replicating the feel of World War I, World War II. And so those are the type of moral quandaries that will come up in Star Wars sometimes. But yeah, Moni said it as well. Good soldiers follow orders gives me the super creeps.
Yeah,
indeed.
But it's important though to make the distinction. That's a directive from Palpatine. The show, Star Wars itself, is not saying that that's what makes a good soldier.
Right. Yeah, I think that's actually a really good indication that he still has his chip, is that he has this sort of conditioned response, it feels like. Because he doesn't even have much variation on the saying, good soldiers follow orders. That's because it's the same line every time until it's not. And that might be when he actually has the chip out, is that he's not delivering the exact same version of that line every time.
Yeah.
I followed orders because that's what good soldiers do, as opposed to good soldiers follow orders, which is the same thing he said about 14 times before that or whatever.
Yeah. But anyway, so
him and Dedra Miro would make a good pair. Yeah, they would. Except Dedra's got a man already. Don't be messing with my favorite ship in the Star Wars fandom.
Talk about creep factor. So anyway, so I love the character of Hauser. I have serious doubts about how long he survived after that, but if there's any chance that he didn't get immediately executed, I hope to see his return. plus he was just stylish. He had a lot working for him with the colors and the slick back hair.
Mm-hmm.
Which was, and the colors themselves were interesting enough, which I think goes to show that maybe the conditioning didn't work too well on him, because one of the first things that happened with most of the soldiers were that they got rid of all the colors to make all of the clones look identical. And so the fact that he was still sporting the turquoise colors, so hopefully we'll see him again.
Hopefully.
But no, and we already talked about Hera in that a two-parter. I loved it. It was a really great trip down memory lane for. Plus, it was just a thrill to see her character her and Chopper in Clone Wars style animation, which was different. All right, I'm hesitant because I know you don't like her too much.
Go ahead.
But like I do feel like I want to make sure that we give some time to Omega beyond just the point of disagreement, like I just, first of all, like maybe it's superficial, but she immediately won me over just because I love Michelle Ang's accent and the fact that she always calls herself Omega. No, she's just adorable, and I just love, and I think part of it is like when they first go on to the planet where Cut and Sue are, and she's just looking at the ground and holding the sand and stuff. The fact that that's her first experience off of Camino, and there's just something so joyous about someone having those experiences for the first time, and then as she learns to navigate between who to trust, who not to trust, and also the pushback that she gives with Hunter, where Hunter just constantly wants to, the fact that she's someone who is going to have to learn to take care of herself, and he's perhaps correctly being the protective dad and wanting to like always keep her on the ship and do that. But the fact that she's made the decision that she wants to go with them, she doesn't want to be left behind.
If they're going to be running around with blasters and armor, get the girl blaster and some armor, something, because that bow thing is not working for her too great.
No, the bow is awesome.
What?
The bow is awesome.
Okay.
That is her weapon of choice, and it's
fine. It's fine. Like, I'm gonna anyway. Somebody was saying like, I just got to flash this up on screen real quick because we're not. I
do not support this for anybody watching this stream.
In control here.
I did not sign off on that picture. Just want to have that be known.
I'll take all of the credit for that, or blame, depending on how you want to look at it, I guess.
And again, I just, for me, she was the heart and soul of the show in a great way, and so, and it broke my heart so much when we got to the finale, and and it's so funny that this is like a combination of two things that you were like, oh no, but when AZ starts, runs out of power and starts to drown, and she goes after him, like, that got me, and the fact that then Crosshair, fires his weapon to bring both of them. back up. It got me, and so
Yeah, we won't talk about my read on that scene. That's fine.
okay. Well, yeah.
What else can I say?
There's no two ways about it, folks.
There isn't, and you know what?
Stephen and I have diverted on this one.
That's okay. So somebody asked me about the bowcaster. The bowcaster's fine. Omega's bow is fine, but I feel like she would do better if you just gave her a pistol.
Yeah, but that's the weapon she's chosen, and
okay, it's inefficient.
Like, somebody can tell me it's this is the most efficient sword I can present you with. I'm still gonna want my dragon head katana.
So what else you got, buddy?
Let's run through.
I'm going to give you 17 more minutes tops, and then I'm out of here.
I am determined to get this stream all the way to the 2-hour mark.
I'm not.
I know you're not.
Do you think Omega has Palpy Boy's hair? Kinda.
No. Stop this shit. This was a big thing, like, because everybody's a Palpatine clone. Okay? No.
Yeah, she's a fat clone.
Yeah, Omega is like, and we've already established she's a genetic clone of Django, so no.
I have not watched either one of those trailers. Sorry. Like, I'm in a different place. You guys also have to understand, like, I'm a big into the tabletop RPG community, and that whole thing is just actively on fire right now. Me cutting out enough hours to watch this whole season was a little bit of a trick. Just tearing myself away from the ongoing dumpster fire that is that stuff.
Okay, another one of the episodes that I wanted to touch on is before the finale, War Mantle, which is the episode where they go and they rescued Gregor, who we know from both Clone Wars and
I'm like,
Rebels.
He survived getting exploded. Yay, Gregor!
And I love the fact that, like, now we can pretty much definitively say, like, him surviving that explosion is why he ended up so kooky and in Rebels. Because he's a little less so, here than in Rebels, but he's still like
he's on the way.
Yeah. And I love the fact that, and then they attempted to, like, throw in a little thing for why are the stormtroopers not that great. It's because they had the clones train them, and at least in Gregor's case, he's like, yeah, I'm not training them too well.
Yeah.
So, which, I have mixed feelings about that whole thing overall, because and this is kind of off topic a little bit, but I've never been a fan of the whole let's lean into the fact that our heroes never get hit by the stormtroopers. Like, because I preferred it, like, and that was the thing about Andor, which is taking a more sort of quote unquote serious approach to the Star Wars universe. Stormtroopers are actually shown to be extremely good shots in that.
The Imperial Stormtroopers are so accurate.
Yeah, you get to the finale of that show and they are taking people out left and right. So I'm kind of not crazy about, like, stuff like we saw in Mandalorian where, they can't hit a tin can right in front of them. I think that's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was still a good wink in this to be like, yeah, I'm, I'm slacking off on some of their training a bit. I'm
Um,
actually, what I wanted to bring up was there was I have to look up the name of it. Hold on. So the facility that we see in the very last scene of the season, where I think it's Nalase, where she's being taken to the Imperial facility, it's actually to a place called Mount Tantus, which I think is known in the EU as a cloning facility.
in the European Union,
Expanded universe.
right?
And yeah, let me bring up the Legends article here. I think it ties in with the Thrawn books in the original expanded universe. So it's interesting that they chose to throw that in, and the fact that Thrawn is going to come into play in the Ahsoka show and building up. So it feels like they're kind of laying the groundwork for a version of the Heir to the Empire story, from Legends. I'll be interested to see how all this stuff ties together. And by the way, the cloning, the woman who comes up and says to Nala, welcome. She's got the insignia on her uniform. That is the same insignia that I don't remember his name, the cloning dude in Mandalorian has. The one who was interested in Grogu. Maybe someone in the chat remembers his name. I'm not pulling up a whole different page on Mandalorian cast members.
I don't know. Are you talking about the lady that had the Beskar spear?
No, and the guy who was with the client in the
doctor?
early episode. Yeah, the doctor, Dr. Pershing. That's his name.
Yep, that's him.
Yeah, so same insignia. So they're starting to tie that stuff together with the cloning and all that. And by the way, it was like creepy just when they went in the episode where Omega is being chased by Cad Bane and by Fennec, and they go to the old cloning facility that kind of looked like kind of had Cloud City vibes.
Oh,
but and they showed like the early experiments with cloning and stuff, and like I know we don't like to mention its name, but all this stuff does bring to mind like Rise of Skywalker cloning stuff. So disregarding that movie, like it does seem like they're sort of laying groundwork for some of that storytelling down the line.
Yeah, they're going to try to polish that turd, aren't they?
I mean, a lot of people once would have said the same thing about the prequels, but it was fertile ground for a lot of storytelling. To come.
It was. John, you can keep talking. I gotta go, man. I gotta pee so bad.
Okay.
So, like, it is what it is. I almost made it to the 2-hour mark. We're about 10 minutes shy of it anyway. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's here. I'm going to go to the restroom.
Okay.
And I'll see you next week.
All right.
I'm going to come back and see if you're still talking, but I just can't wait anymore. So
okay, that's fine.
If you finish before, great. If not, I'll see you all next week for whatever the hell it is we're doing. All right, cool.
All right. Bye. All right, guys. So I don't even know if I'm going to make it 10 minutes because my voice is getting so hoarse because I've been doing way too much talking and I've run out of water. But I'm just going to say that, I feel for Steven. I think a lot of Star Wars fans are kind of feeling exhaustion from a lot of the shows we've gotten and all that stuff. But for me, Bad Batch is has kind of been my favorite thing to come out of this new era of Star Wars. Combined with the final season of Clone Wars. Although I got to say, after Andor was pretty freaking great. But something about Bad Batch, it's that pure spirit of Star Wars and all its weirdness, and and it shows that you don't have to sacrifice that, for drama's sake. You can have both of those things. And again, it's like, even Steven said as much. This is just a beautiful show to look at. The animation is gorgeous. I think, I just looked at some of the stuff that done like, with smoke and water and just like everything. You get the sense of scale with this show too, that I don't think you're able to get with a lot of the live action stuff that's like shot on the volume, for instance. I think Andor did a great job of giving a sense of scale and scope, but I think some of the other live action shows feel a little small scale, and that's the advantage of animation. You can still get these wide vistas and how many times can I say scale, but sense of scale. So yeah. Yeah, I'll go ahead and pop this up. Yeah, not everything can be like Andor. And that's good, because I think there should be lots of different flavors of Star Wars. Because the thing is, like, okay, Steven and I may disagree on this, but he loves Andor, and that's the Star Wars show for him right now. Just like it is for me too. I thought Andor was great. It's probably the only reason it's not my absolute favorite show from from last year is because we also had Sandman, which I can't let go of. Sandman was too great. But Andor was but yeah, and again, I'm going to say again, Stephen, like, it's a sequel to the Clone Wars, so like it should still be in that same vein. But you really should, Sean, because it's like, I know a lot of people have a tough time like getting over the animation like barrier. But there's so much, like, even if you still go into kind of skeptical, just keep in mind there is so much storytelling that's been done in animation that, like, if nothing else, you want to have that wealth of like background. And there's stuff in Clone Wars just dealing with Mandalore and Darth Maul and all these characters, and this, what it does for Anakin's character, and then you get Ahsoka's whole training as a Jedi, and there's so much that's important to what's going on right now in Star Wars that I feel like people who don't give it a chance are doing themselves a disservice. So I do get it. I understand, but just try to give it a chance and go for it. Wow. Okay, so I'm totally losing my voice here, but damn it, guys, we're only like 5.5 minutes away. I think we can make it. So I'm gonna keep going for as long as I can here, but not as long as I can. Another 5 minutes. But yeah, you know what? I can go into let's see, next week. I honestly don't have any clue what we might talk about for next week, but shit. I don't know. You guys have any ideas? I'll have to start watching a new show, maybe. Let's see. I have been thinking about getting into what's God, what is the show? Vox Machina. I don't think I'll get caught up in time to join Steven for a season 2 conversation, but I did want to catch up on season 1 because that actually looks like a good show.
I made it back, y'all.
All right, good. All right, I was just saying
how saying like Vox Machina.
Yeah, why don't you talk about that for a minute or two while my
Vox Machina they're releasing 3 episodes at a time. The first 3 are out. It's season 2. I loved the first season. The second season has had a very strong start. Yeah. So I'm gonna look. So that means that maybe on like February 12th, we'll be able to cover Vox Machina because it'll all be out by then.
Yeah, if I can, I'm on a roll the past couple of days because I plowed through the Bad Batch episodes, so maybe I can just use that inertia and focus it
and go watch Arcane.
No, but Vox Machina maybe.
Okay, you know what? I'll take what I can get.
Because even though I'm not into that much into the D&D stuff, it is like it's fantasy and so it's still, I feel like it's still in my wheelhouse of stuff I would enjoy.
Yeah, Vox Machina is great fun. Yeah, Arcane is great. Better than Vox Machina, but not as fun. Not as funny. Like Vox Machina, you will have a lot of fun with. Arcane is just, it's like being in an abusive relationship. It's going to keep hurting you and you're going to keep coming back for more.
Danny, if I could find somebody to talk with me about that movie, I would go ahead and do it.
It sounds like Danny's volunteering.
Yeah, no, if you want to. We'll make plans for that. I've realized that that's actually kind of the big stumbling block to me starting up my channel again with consistent streams. Is I had it easy for a while AR was co-hosting with me because we just agree on like a long list of movies that we both liked, and then it was kind of easy to pick from that. But now that it would just be me and trying to find people to talk about movies that I would actually like to talk about, it's more difficult. So
all right, so I'm opening up HBO on my phone right now because The Last of Us is dropping as we speak. That's another show. When it's done, we'll talk about it, but that's probably like 2 months from now or more. Because they are releasing, one at a time. It looks like a lot of people are going because it's still loading.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because it's, from what I can tell, it's a very popular show. So
I'm surprised it got me as much as it did. I'm surprised that it got the general viewing public as much as it did. Because it is, it is a survival horror show on some level. But it feels like the survival horror is just the backdrop for the human story that's going to be going on,
Yeah. All right, last 30 seconds. I'll just say I'm, of course, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it more, Stephen, because I did push this a lot, but I'm glad that you watched it and that hopefully you'll continue to give it a chance. And
false alarm. It's still an hour till The Last of Us comes out.
Oh, okay. But anyway, I'm thank you all for joining the chat, because I enjoyed revisiting season 1, and I'm enjoying the heck out of season 2. I will say, like, there's a really, like, if you feel like, some of the stuff, like with Omega and some, that kind of stuff, distracted from, the show that you kind of wanted with this, there's an episode, it's episode 3 of season 2, that is crosshair focused, that I think you will really enjoy.
I'm looking, like I'm hopeful that I will like season 2 better. And again, like me, I got a long-standing love affair with Star Wars. I did not hate this by any means. I think that's pretty clear, but it did not really like resonate with me the way some other Star Wars does. Anyway, that's it for me. John, you done?
Yeah, I'm good.
Great. You know what? Thank you, everyone who was here. Thank you for covering for me while I went to the bathroom, John. I could not wait. But yeah, come back next week where we'll be talking about something else nerdy. I'm not even sure what yet, but something. And yeah, until then, y'all be nice. Peace, be excellent to each other. You know what we do here. John, we'll see you next week. We'll see all of you next week. And